Please note that smoking, please stand away from the signs, let go of the railings. I'll be rotating the floor for you. Thank you.
I know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to greet everybody. I'll try again. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. How are you? All right, I'm also fine. Thanks for asking me. Welcome to Robben Island Museum. My name is Sobandu. I'll be your host, and my colleague behind the wheel, Jimmy. We'll both take you on a tour around the island for 45 minutes before we take you to jail. Is that okay with you? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, my tour is conducted in English. And unfortunately, there are only two languages that I understand. Xhosa, my mother language, and a little bit of English. And if there are people in this bus having a problem with my English, then we'll have to try Xhosa as an alternative. So, which one do you prefer, Xhosa or English? English. Xhosa. I'll try English then, so as to accommodate everybody. Do you want me to teach you Xhosa? Yes, please. It's a very easy language to learn. Yes. You'll have to repeat after me. All right? Very easy. Let's try the easiest one. Stick to English. This is Murray's Bay Harbour. Harbour was named after John Murray, was a whaler. He opened a whaling station on the island in the 1800s. At that time, there were Xhosa prophets and chiefs who were incarcerated on this island. They stole John Murray's boats to escape. John Murray then was moved to Cape Town because they said it was the security risk. And the harbour remains as Murray's Bay Harbour. Robben Island is 574 hectares, the area. 5.4 kilometers long by 1.5 kilometers wide. Drive around the island is 12 kilometers in circumference. The nearest place to the island is Globic Strand, is on this side of the island, which is the easterly side. Is about 7.5 kilometers from where we are. To Cape Town, phone is ringing. Phone is off. Normally I charge 50 rand for people for the phone that rang, 50 rand to answer it. If we don't have money, I'll put you in jail, the cells are empty. Distance to Cape Town is 11 kilometers or 7 nautical miles. Name Robben Island came from a Dutch word for seals. When Dutch people arrived, there were millions of seals on the island. So they used to call the island the Seal Island in Dutch, Robben Island in other words. Do you have people from Netherlands in this bus, Holland? Yes? You agree with me? I'm not sure. German? Alright. Picture on the left. This is the first group of prisoners that arrived in 1960. The first group of prisoners that arrived in 1960. The picture was taken in 1960. That is when the Department of Prison took over from the Department of Defense. During Second World War, Robben Island was used as the military training base and the naval base. So from 45 to 59 and the beginning of 60, it was used as the naval base. I don't know whether you've noticed from the first two big pictures like this one on the other side, people wearing white shorts and white shirts. Those were naval soldiers and they were still here. And in front of the beetle, there are 3 white guards standing in front with rifles. Can you see them? Yeah, there is a question that always come up about black guards. Are there any black guards in this prison? Yes, there were black guards, but they didn't last long. From 60 to 61. 61, then they were moved. That is when political prisoners came to this prison. They were transferred to the other prisons on the mainland. So they only wanted white guards on the island. And then 1991 to 1996, that is when all the political prisoners were released from prison. And then they came back again to the island. So the island was used for criminals up until 1996. In 1996, criminals were then transferred to the other prisons on the mainland. guards are standing behind the beetle, like guards with jackets. Can you see them there? They were not given rifles. They were only given batons. This is kind of clothing prisoners wore in prison: khaki shorts, khaki shirts. They were barefoot, as you can all see them there. But they were given shoes later on. They were given shoes and sandals. And they had to shave their hair. They were chained most of their time. On arrival from the boat to the south to their workplaces, and they were unchained when they were working, and they were unchained when they were in the south. The harbour wall is the original wall which was made during Second World War by John Craig. The wall over here was made by prisoners during prison time. They excavated the stone from the stone quarry on the northern part of the island. This is the very same stone that built the maximum security prison, and is the same stone that built the building on the right-hand side. This is the visitor center. Prisoners, visitors met each other in this building for visits. Visitors entered the white door on the right-hand side. Extension part of the building used to be the waiting room for visitors. Prisoners then walked from the prison on chains. They entered the door on the other side. Time for visit was only 30 minutes. Prisoner and the visitor were separated with a glass partition in this building. Prisoners had to book 6 months in advance. That will take prison authorities 2 years or more to respond to that application. Visitors traveled thousands of kilometers for 30 minutes visit. Talking about people who came from places like KwaZulu-Natal, from Namibia, from Johannesburg, from the Eastern Cape, for a 30 minutes visit. Visits were conducted in English or Afrikaans, so if you spoke languages that guards couldn't understand, Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, Venda, Shangaan, they'll cut that visit. That means prisoners go back to the cells, visitors then back to the mainland. We're talking about these people who traveled thousands of kilometers by train for 3 days to Cape Town, take the boat from Cape Town to the island for 45 minutes, one of the slower boats, sit and wait in the waiting rooms, and be told that the prisoner is sick in the cells, so he's unable to come for a visit. On the other side of this building, they will tell a prisoner that the visitor missed the boat from Cape Town, or he or she didn't have money to come down to Robben Island. Whereas they were both waiting for each other in the waiting rooms. But that's what they used to tell them. That was just to demoralize them and to dehumanize them. Are there any questions so far? No questions? We'll continue then. You'll get more stories as we go. Prisoners were grouped into notches, A, B, C, and D notch. D notch was the lowest in prison. They would get 2 visits a year. And those who were in A notch, they would get about 12 visits a year. I know that when we are around this area, people get excited when they see penguins. There are penguins on this side. And for people who don't know penguins, they are black and white. Building on the right-hand side, building with the green dome, is the Karamat, or the Holy Muslim Shrine. It was erected in 1967. It's built on top of the grave of Sheikh Abdurrahman Madura. He was imprisoned in 1722. He died in 1754. His bones were returned back to his country, and he was from the island of Java. Many of them princes and the kings from the East Indies countries. Those who were opposed to Dutch rule were incarcerated on this island. Authorities built the shrine because the man was a holy man, and that's the holy place for Muslims. In front of us, this is maximum security prison, built in 1963 by prisoners. There's an old prison on the northern part of the island, which was built in 1960. But the number of prisoners in the late 60s was expanding, so prison authorities decided to build this one. Prison tour will be our last stop, so this will be the second phase of the Robben Island Museum tour. Now, we'll jump up to the 1800s. A cemetery coming up on your right hand side dates us back during that time. Between 1846 and 1931, this island was used as the place of banishment or the dumping place for chronic sick people, for lunatics, and people who suffered from leprosy disease, lepers. Lepers were cast out from the society on the mainland in the 1800s because people were saying leprosy disease was contagious and doctors couldn't cure the disease. Governor in 1891 passed an act, the Leprosy Suppression Act, that everybody who had leprosy should come to the island. So they were taken from all the parts of South Africa, and they were multiracial, but they were discriminated in race and in gender on the island. Those who died, they were buried there. We have there plus minus 1,500 graves, starting from this part and up to the places. Lepers who survived 1931 were taken to Pretoria, and some of them in Transkei, and buildings were demolished in 1931. But there are a few buildings which left, and I'll point them as we go. Prisoners who died between the 60s and the 90s were never buried on the island, so their bodies were taken to their families on the mainland. The people from England, this was England. Let's see people from England. Thank you. How is my English? German, Dutch, how's my English? Good. We'll stick to English then, thank you. We're not allowed to smoke. Robben Island has been declared an environmentally sensitive area. So we do request not to smoke. And if you cannot smoke for 45 minutes, why don't you stop smoking? People with cell phones, is there a humble request to switch off your cell phones? They're a bit disturbing in the bus and in the prison. And we're not allowed to take anything from the island, stones, shells, and flowers. We are trying to preserve the island for future generations. And only thing that you may take from Robben Island is pictures. You may take as many pictures as you wish. On the right hand side, the Church of Good Shepherd. It was erected in 1895, built by lepers themselves. Money to build this church was donated by Reverend Watkins. This was mainly for male lepers. Male and female lepers were separated. Female lepers were kept on the northern part of the island, and so female lepers church was demolished in 1931. This is the only building which do not belong to the state. It belonged to Anglican Churches Association, and that is why it was not demolished. Male and female lepers were separated because doctors feared that children will be born from leprosy might be affected by the disease. The South African Leprosy Commission is trying to fight leprosy in Africa, but it's difficult for them to reach other countries up in Africa because of civil wars and rebel wars, but they're trying their best. You get leprosy in India, you get leprosy in South America, in Brazil. There are still hospitals for leprosy sufferers, and the disease, it is curable. On your left hand side is medium security prison, or the convict prison, built in 1974 for criminals. When they built the prison for Robben Island in 1960, it was mainly built for criminals, but due to the past law campaigns in the early 60s, a lot of political activists were captured from the mainland, sent to Robben Island as political prisoners. In prison, they were grouped with criminals, but later they used to smuggle information. And prison authorities realized that, and so they've decided to separate them, and they built the medium prison for criminals. Political prisoners earlier on were in the majority, so they influenced criminals with politics, or they politicized them. Later on, by the time other criminals left the prison, some of them were already politicians. We're now entering the village. This is here where guards and their families lived. People sitting in the back. Can you hear me clearly? Thank you. Clinic on your right, erected during Second World War. used by guards and their families as the hospital. In prison, there is a hospital which was meant for prisoners. The doctor used to go there only on Mondays. And remember, there is only one Monday a week. So that means if a prisoner is sick that very same day, he had to wait for next Monday to come in order to get doctor's help. Or sometimes to reach the stage of dying in order to be taken to the other hospitals on the mainland. On your left-hand side, sports facilities, netball courts, tennis courts, soccer, the rugby field down there. These facilities were made by prisoners, but they were used by guards and their families. Today they are used by Bonteboks, that animal over there. Prisoners only received their sports and recreation facilities after hard labor was closed in 1878. Building coming up on your left-hand side, erected in 1840, used to be the house of the medical superintendent who looked after the lepers. Today is the clubhouse. Greyish building on your left with broken windows is our old power station built during Second World War. We have new power station built in 1993. Green building is the post office of the island, also built during the war and is still operating. This is here where prisoners received mail, but of course letters for prisoners were censored. A prisoner will only get the salutation and the conclusion of the letter. Content will be deleted, more especially if it was political. This village in the 1800s was occupied by people who looked after lepers. Most of these people came from other countries, places like Ireland. And there were doctors, there were nuns, there were nurses, there were ministers who looked after these people. And some of them died here, and they were buried on the island. At the back of the village, up in the hill, there is a cemetery for those people who died here. And as I've said, majority came from Ireland, so they used to call this village the Irish town. They used to call the village the Irish town. Is there anyone from Ireland? People from Ireland? Welcome to Irish town. John Craig was Scottish. I had people from Scotland. Do you know John Craig? No. Never heard of him. He was on the island. That is why I don't know him. Okay, John Craig built the harbour. He built this wall. This is the John Craig Hall, built during Second World War. He was the civil engineer during the war. It's the community hall used by villagers for social activities. The mini supermarket on the left there, also built during the Second World War. Most of the buildings in this village were built during Second World War, including these houses. There were 3,000 soldiers on the island, 3,000 soldiers on the island during Second World War, 1,300 people who lived in this village during prison time, guards and their families. We are 150 to 200 people who live on the island today. People work for Robben Island Museum, other people work for Public Works Department and a partner for the lighthouse. On the right hand side, building was erected in 1846. Used to be the hospital ward for chronic sick people. During Second World War, this building was used as the library and artillery school. Today is the primary school of the island. We're taking children from grade 1 to grade 7. Kids then they'll have to go to Cape Town to further their education. We have 26 kids and 3 teachers. Other kids commute every day to come to school here, and most of the kids from Robben Island prefers to go to Cape Town to school, so that in winter when the sea is rough, they don't have to go to school. Red and white building on your left hand side used to be the governor's house, the governor of the Cape. During prison time, it was the superintendent's house. Today is the conference center. It has conference facilities. Then the other part of the building is now used as the guest house. Mr. Mandela, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, the comedian Bill Cosby, their party was held there. It was the fundraising party for ex-political prisoners pension fund on the 20th of March in 1997. Place on your left on the mainland is Blobbeck Strand. is Blombeekstrand, is the nearest place to the island. It's about 7.5 kilometers from the island. That is the place that I was telling you about earlier on. We now finished with the village part of the tour. We've just entered the nature side of the island. On this side, you will see animals. You will see more elephants, lions, giraffes, buffaloes. If you don't see them today, you can come back again tomorrow. When we hear Cape Town is on your left when we hear, and we stop here for people to go out and take pictures of Cape Town. Do you want us to stop today? Yes or no? No? All right, then we continue. Building on your left-hand side was erected in the 1800s. It used to be the abattoir. Later it was converted to be the local pub of the island. So during present time it was used as the pub for guards. As you can see, it's on the rocks.
On the rocks.
Brown thing floating on the water on your left is seaweed. It was collected by prisoners. It was one of prisoners' hard labor to collect that seaweed in that icy cold water. It was taken to the mainland, used as the fertilizer or a manure for the gardens. On the right hand side, Jan van Riebeeck's quarry. He sent his people, slaves and convicts, to come and excavate stone here. Stone that was excavated from this quarry was used to build the castle in Cape Town. That was in 1653. Prisoners who arrived in the early 60s worked in this quarry, but later they were moved to the other quarry on the northern part of the island. They were moved because prison authorities were saying people from Cape Town could see prisoners when they were working here, and they said there is life as well on this site, so that is why they moved them. On the right hand side, ladies and gentlemen, those structures were compounds for lepers in the 1800s. Those were compounds for lepers in the 1800s. Single quarters for soldiers during the Second World War. Using them today as our timeshare units. They sunbathed. Sometimes you get free showers and free air conditioning. The 5 stars, because you can easily count 5 or more stars at night. Tell me, how was your boat ride on the way to the island? How was the boat trip? Good, nice. You've enjoyed it? Okay, I am glad to hear that. These guys didn't enjoy it. This is Feng Chung Tu, made in Taiwan. It was a Taiwanese fishing vessel. It ran aground in 1977 with about 70 tons of tuna on board. Fortunately, all the crew survived, and the tuna survived. Between Cape Town and Robben Island, in the middle of the sea, there is a very big rock, the Whale Rock, or a reef. It's not visible. That rock took about 29 ships passing over Robben Island, 29 ships and 1 bus. Bus incident happened on the 19th of March in 1997. They were trying to transport that bus from Cape Town to Robben Island by helicopter. Unfortunately, cable snapped and bus dropped in the water. So the bus is somewhere there right now. But crayfish and sharks are busy conducting marine tours under the sea. And I think there is bus stop between Cape Town and Robben Island. These structures were searchlights during Second World War. These were searchlights during Second World War. Full story of the bus. Mrs. Hillary Clinton was joining Mr. Nelson Mandela for the party on the island in March 97. 2 weeks before the event, they sent people to come and check conditions of our buses. At that time, we're still using these old buses. This bus was used during present time. So they went back and they said there is no way that the First Lady can use old buses. So they purchased a brand new bus. They hired a helicopter. on the way to the island bus stop in the water. So the bus is still there. Unfortunately for the First Lady, she had to use an old bus. Anyway, she survived. Do we have South Africans in this bus?
Yeah.
Let's see South Africans. Thank you. Are you proud to be South Africans?
Yeah.
Oh yes, proud. And other people, we have people from England, Scotland, Ireland, and others. Which countries are you from? Germans? And others?
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Let's see people from New Zealand. Thank you. And others? From Lesotho? All right. And other people from Lesotho? No, they're the only ones. And other
Australia.
people?
Australia.
Australia.
Yep.
Let's see people from Australia. All right. Okay. Thanks. And others?
USA.
From USA. Is that United States of Africa? America. USA. Thank you. Any other people from America in the bus? Yes. Okay. And others?
Wales.
Wales. Yes. Wales. And others? Okay, other people don't want to tell us where they're from. It's fine, you're all welcome to Robben Island and to South Africa. Feel free here at home. I just want to congratulate two countries, Australians, for their victory in cricket. Yes, you're good. You're good. South Africans tried. We'll try again. England's tried. What else was there? United States don't play cricket. Let's see. And Germans, I would like to congratulate Germans for
Second one.
no for the yeah for the World Cup 2006 World Cup. We were all bidding for the games. Yes, we were all bidding for the games. On your left, the camouflage structure is the B1 9.2 inch barrel artillery gun. We had 5 of these guns. Today we're left with 3. 2 guns were taken to Cape Town. First guns were introduced on the island in 1941 and the last guns in 1945. These guns never went for the war. Soldiers were using them for practicing shootings. During Second World War, Robben Island served as the military training base and the strategic place to protect Cape Town. Cape Town was never attacked, but South Africa was helping Britain during the war, and the Suez Canal was closed, so ships to the east had to come via Cape Town. Building on the left used to be the gunner's workshop during Second World War, and it was camouflaged then. On the right-hand side, coming up, the lighthouse. It was erected in 1863, still operating. We're using 464,000 candle powers, and it is automatically operated. Lighthouse was built on the highest point of the island, which is 30 meters above the sea level. The lighthouse is 18 meters high. Grass is natural vegetation of the island. Trees were introduced in 1892. There was a planting campaign to protect buildings from the strong winds coming from the northern part of the island. They've introduced the eucalyptus tree from Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, the eucalyptus tree is giving us a problem, consume a lot of water from the island. I have a request for Australians to do us a favor and take all these trees back to Australia. We don't need them. And they've introduced other trees like Manatoga, Ryegrans, and pine trees. Are there any golf players in this bus? Any golf players? Yes, on your left is Robben Island Golf Course, our 18-hole golf course. I think you should come and try this one. Very challenging, yeah? At the end of the golf course, you'll get the Robben Island International Airport, our landing strip, which was used and constructed by soldiers during Second World War. Today is used by ostriches to land. Ostriches on the island, so they flew over to the island because they cannot swim. I'm kidding. We finished with the village and the nature side of the island. Are we still together? Yes. Alright. On your left. Building on your left is our transport depot. All vehicles of the island are maintained here. And our homemade sports cars are manufactured here. With one coming up on your right hand side and two coming up on your left. And if you wish to purchase one, you should please talk to me. Now we on our way. We're on our way now to the lime quarry. Mr. Nelson Mandela labored in the lime quarry, not alone. There were about 30 of them who were promised to work in the lime quarry for 6 months. They ended up working 13 and a half years, excavating the limestone which was used to construct the roads here in Robben Island. That very same stone in the 16th, 17th and 1800s, it was used to whitewash the buildings on the mainland. The Cape Castle and the Slave Lodge. They worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Prisoners used the road coming up in front of us on the right hand side. From the prison, back of the prison, they will join this road, walk in between the barbed wire on chains to the lime quarry. Prisoners were not allowed to use the tarred road, so they used the back road from the prison to the lime quarry. Limestone is a very soft stone to get, but what was hard for prisoners was to stand the brightness of the lime, and the dust is the one that affected their eyes and their lungs. Prisoners were not given glasses, something to put on their nose for protection. Prison authorities were saying it was not part of their uniform, so this affected them. Mr. Nelson Mandela, a good example, after his release from prison, had to undergo an eye operation. That was due to the lime dust and brightness. Not only him, all those laborers were affected. There are marks on the walls. These marks were made, they were done by the bulldozers. After the quarries were closed, guards needed the limestone, so they used bulldozers or modern machinery. Before, prisoners used primitive tools. They used hand picks, they used shovels, spade and wheelbarrows. If you look on your left over there, there is a very big hole over the cave. Can we all see the hole there? Yes, in 1964, when they came to work here for the first time, they found the cave. We don't know who dug the cave. But the only thing that I know, this dates back during the 1600s, during the Van Riebeeck period. During prison time, prisoners used it for many purposes. For lunch, they will sit there and eat lunch. Food will be prepared in jail, so they'll just bring food for prisoners here. They use the hole as their ablution block or a toilet. They will put their buckets and relieve themselves. Prisoners were not allowed to leave this quarry. At the top, there were guards watching prisoners as they were working. They used the hole as their classroom to educate themselves. Political and academic discussions took place here. Basic education was done here by prisoners, because some of them couldn't even write their names. There were those who were educated, and teaching those who were illiterate. They used the slogan, each one, teach one. And they even said they were going to turn Robben Island to be their university. We'll say they did. Mr. Eddie Daniels came to this prison in 1964 with grade 7. He left Robben Island after 15 years with 2 university degrees, the BA and the BCom. His brother helped him financially, and the inmates from the prison helped him with education. The deputy president of this country, Mr. Jacob Zuma, also came in 64. When he arrived, he couldn't speak and write English. He didn't get formal education at all. Inmates in jail helped him with education. He was released in 79. He left the country after his release. Went to Mozambique and in other countries for military training. Came back from exile. In 1994, he was the national chairperson of the ANC. He was the Minister of Economic Affairs in the KwaZulu-Natal province. He was then in 1999 elected as the Deputy President for this country. Last day he received an honorary doctorate. He's the Chancellor at the University of Zululand. Dikgang Mseneke was the youngest prisoner. He was 14, turning 15 when he came to this prison. He was a young boy, arrested with his teachers. One of his former teachers today is in Parliament, Bishop Stanley Mohoba. Was his teacher in Pretoria before they came to prison. Became his teacher on the island. Dikgang Mseneke obtained 2 university degrees on the island, BA and the BUris. Was busy doing his LLB before he's released in 73. Completed that on the mainland. Currently he's a judge at the Pretoria High Court and is the senior in the judiciary. Sits on the Constitutional Court. Talking about Justice Dikgang Mseneke. Many of them received education on the island under those difficulties, hardship, pain, and suffering. Prisoners in the 60s were brutalized. They were not allowed to study, not even to carry study materials. Those who worked in this quarry had no books. They used sand and their fingers to write on the sand. Others were building houses, roads. They stole cement bags, made books out of them, used them in the cells as their writing pads. And criminals worked in prison warders' offices. They stole pencils and pens, smuggled them. But later prisoners were fed up of smuggling things because they were punished. So they've decided to fight for their rights. They embarked on hunger strikes. Pressure from outside forced authorities to change conditions in prison. So later on things changed. Prisoners were allowed to study. They made applications through University of South Africa and in other corresponding institutions. So that is how they obtained university degrees. It doesn't end up there. Education for prisoners was a privilege. It was not a right. So that means prison authorities could take it anytime they felt like it. It was a form of punishment. They used to take their books when they were about to write exams. They would keep their exam papers in their offices, keep their application forms just to demoralize their spirits. But prisoners were very strong. They fought until the last days. Are there any questions so far? Questions? Comments? Clarity? Are you still together? All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the absence of questions, we'll then proceed with our tour. Just make a turn closer to the hole. People who are interested to take pictures of the quarry may do so, unfortunately, through the windows. So people sitting on the right hand side, you can get your cameras ready if you are interested. And then we'll make a turn for people sitting on the left. Please take note of the pile of stones on the left hand side of the entrance. And there is a structure on top of the quarry on the right hand side up on the hill. That is the BOP, or the Battery Observation Point. It was used by soldiers during Second World War. It was used by soldiers during Second World War. This is the hole that I was referring to earlier on. It is not very deep though. It's 7.5 meters deep, 7.5 meters deep. So people sitting on the right hand side, use your cameras, so we just make a turn for those sitting on the left. People sitting on the left-hand side is a tenor. Plenty of few pictures, few shots of this place. So those who were here for those who couldn't make it, and for those who were not there. They place those stones as the symbol of freedom for this country, symbol of hope, and symbol of peace. Today I'll say the pile of stones symbolizing the Rainbow Nation and the unity among South Africans. Stones are different. They are different in colors, different in sizes. You get big, medium, and small stones, different in shapes, different in textures. You get rough and smooth stones placed by different people who came from different cultural backgrounds, and they were united the other day. They formed one nation. It's the Rainbow Nation that we are talking about today in South Africa. They formed one race, one human race. 11th of February is the date when Mr. Nelson Mandela was released in jail in 1990. They came 5 years after his release for the reunion. He was preaching peace and reconciliation. He even won the Nobel Peace Prize. Him and the former president of this country, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, they're the people who managed to change this country. South Africa has changed. Mr. Mandela told us on the island that we mustn't only preach reconciliation, we must also practice it. And that is what you are trying to do today as Robben Island Museum. Former guards, former prisoners are working for Robben Island Museum. Isn't that wonderful? I think that is wonderful. It shows that South Africa has changed. If you know where we are coming from, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. We're on our way now to a house of the late Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. How many people in the bus know or heard of the late Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe? I noticed 2 hands, only 2 out of 50. And how many people know or heard of the late Steve Bandubiko? Majority, almost everybody in this bus. And how many people know or heard of Mr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela? Everybody. Some people say all of us. And how many people know or heard of Mr. Sobantu? Only, no, 1 person, 2. 2 people out of 50 again. I am very surprised and disappointed. When I started this talk 45 minutes ago, I introduced myself to everybody. I've been with you since then, and you don't know who's this person talking to. I know that I'm not important. But anyway, I understand. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Soban. In case you forgot my colleague's name, Jimmy. He's famous. How is Jimmy's driving, by the way? Very good. Are you sure? Thank you, Jimmy. Good fast, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen. Enough about myself, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. I'll make sure by the time you leave Robben Island, at least for people who don't know Robert Sobukwe, you'll have an idea of him. He was a founder member of the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC. He first joined the ANC Youth League at the Fort Hare University in the mid-40s. He was with the ANC up until 59. In 59, the PAC was formed. 1960, he resigned as the lecturer at the Witwatersrand University. He resigned and he led the anti-pass law campaign. Passes here in South Africa, we used to call it a dom pass. Yes, South Africans are familiar with that word, dom pass. Booklet that was carried by non-whites. It worked in conjunction with the Group Areas Act. In fact, it was meant to control the influx of the people who came from rural areas to the cities to seek for jobs. At that time, if police caught you without the document, you'll be fined. But if you don't have money, they will put you in jail from 3 to 6 months or more. Robert Sobukwe then and many South Africans were fighting against the Bombers. Women marched on the 9th of August in 1956. They marched to Pretoria, led by Lillian Oyi. Or we go down to the early 1900s. Mahatma Gandhi also fought against passes. Robert Sobukwe continued. He made the national call to all those who had to carry dom passes to leave those passes at home and march to the nearest police stations and hand themselves to the police or demand an arrest, just to confuse the system. All over the country, people march. People march from Langa to Cape Town Parliament. Langa is one of the first black townships in Cape Town. About 60,000 people march, led by Philip Hossan, who was only 23 then. Other people were massacred in Langa. About 20 people were massacred. People were massacred in Boipatong, in other parts of South Africa, in Sharpeville. In Sharpeville, 69 defenseless people were killed, hundreds of them injured. That resulted to be the Sharpeville massacre on the 21st of March 1960. Day then was known as the Sharpeville Day. All these years, the 21st of March. Today, after 1994 general elections, is known as the Human Rights Day, because rights of the people were violated. And Robert Sobukwe was amongst those arrested. All organizations were banned after the Sharpeville massacre in 1960. He was arrested and sentenced to 3 years in Pretoria for incitement. In 1963, after he completed his 3 years sentence, government didn't have further charges against him. So Parliament set only to govern the future of Robert Sobukwe. Normally Parliament will sit to make laws for the country. This time they said to rule one person, Sobukwe. They passed a special bill, the Sobukwe Clause, to keep him on the island under solitary confinement for the indefinite period. Was then kept in that house on the left-hand side in isolation. Each and every year, Parliament will sit to extend this detention. Around this house, for 6 years, there were 6 guards who were in patrol for 24 hours. First 4 years, they were not allowed to talk to him. He was not allowed to talk to them, and that affected him psychologically. Later, his vocal cords were damaged. The last 2 years, his wife, Veronica, and the family were allowed to visit him in that house. Mrs. Helen Suzman, she was the member of Parliament in the 60s. She could visit Sobukwe. They became friends. Mr. Benjamin Pogrant was the journalist and the author then, and a close friend of Sobukwe. He could also visit him in this house. He even wrote a book about Robert Sobukwe's life, titled How Can a Man Die Better? The story of Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. Doctors, psychiatrists could come and see him here. Prison warders cooked food for him. He could sleep and wake up anytime he wanted. They kept him here because conditions outside were very bad. and he was regarded as the most feared person for the society outside. I mean, politically dangerous. And there are structures outside the house over there. Can we also see the structures there? They're all dog kennels. Dogs were used by prison authorities for patrols around the island. These structures, ladies and gentlemen, were built in 1974. That was after Robert Sobukwe has left Robben Island. He left in 1963. He was transferred to Kimberley. Left in 69. Was transferred to Kimberley in the Northern Cape. Was extremely sick at that time. Maybe they didn't want him to die on the island. In Kimberley, he was kept under house arrest between 6 in the evening, 6 in the morning. He had to be in the house. During the day, he was practicing in Kimberley as an attorney. He died in Kimberley in 1978 due to cancer. He was buried in Grafrenet, and that is where he was born. He was born on the 5th of December in 1924. He was confined within the fenced area. He was not allowed to leave the premises. During the day, he used to walk around the yard. There will be prisoners who walk past his house going to work in the quarry on the southern side of the island. They were not allowed to greet him. But what he used to do, he would scoop the sand, let that sand fall through his fingers. It was a message to them that they are the sons of the soil from Africa. They should continue fighting for their liberation. Robert Sobukwe, one of the greatest. Ladies and gentlemen, there were other greatest people who fled in the struggle against apartheid. People who were detained by the South African police. People who were exiled in other